Hello, everyone. We'll begin momentarily while we wait for others that are just joining in. Thanks for your patience. With that, let's get started. So good afternoon, all, and welcome to our webinar on corridor target mapping. Our technical productivity tools workflow specialist, Colin Cadet, is here to showcase to you this time-efficient tool. I'm Ramil Axaman, an account manager for SolidCAD, and Colin and I have helped clients ease their day-to-day tasks using the Civil 3D software through better practices and with use of our add-on tools, alleviating redundant tasks, cutting down hours on manual steps. Now here's our agenda for today. We'll start with a brief intro of SolidCAD and as to whom our partner CTC software are. Colin will illustrate how corridors are currently being done in Civil 3D and walk you through how CTC Corridor Mapper will counter time-consuming processes, thus avoiding mistakes. And we'll conclude at the end of the session with a Q&A. SolidCAD has been your authorized Canadian reseller of Autodesk products for well over 25 years. Holding a platinum status, the highest bestowed upon a company, we merged with Cancel back in 2017, forming one nationwide operation and rebranded as SolidCAD, a Cancel company. And as one, we've continued in helping our clients with workflow and product solutions to keep them well ahead of the latest technological advancements. We specialize in industries in architecture, engineering, construction, civil infrastructure, manufacturing, and plants. Our training facilities and offices are located across the country. We have a dedicated technical support team on standby, ready to assist you any given moment in all time zones and in both official languages. Our civil infrastructure services include all these, such as our custom tailored training to meet your company and CAD users' needs, data management, collaboration, and special events like our virtual infrastructure university. It's designed to uncover emerging technologies, share best practices, and industry trends, providing you with the latest tips and tricks to streamline your workflow. Now, times have changed since the start of this pandemic. Our clients needed us most, and we've been there to help. And for your specific needs, please reach out to SolidCAD by contacting your reps. Our partners, CT Software, are at the forefront of advanced productivity tools and worldwide leaders in BIM technology. They're a member of the Autodesk Developer Network and have been making add-ons for Revit and Civil 3D since 2010. These tools are used by more than 40,000 users globally and growing, and in more than 75% of the top firms in the United States alone. SolidCAD's commitment to you by providing the industry-leading solutions such as CTC has always been our focus. We pride ourselves with this belief and practice. So with that, let's get started. I'll hand it over to Colin.
Thanks for that introduction, Ramil. Let's dive right in. Civil 3D. They're utilized across a number of different types of projects, and they're used because you can get so much information out of them. They are big components of Civil 3D, and one of the things that makes them very unique and unique to every single project is that target mapping, being able to stretch and deviate from that standard assembly or typical cross section. The issue with targeting that I find is it's probably the slowest or the biggest pain point for corridors. You're in 3 dialog boxes deep just to set these targets, and then you've got to get out of all 3 of those dialog boxes just to see if the change you made is the correct change. The the target mapping isn't dynamic, such that if you add additional things to the target layers, we do have to go back and retarget that layer for that to take effect. It can be very time consuming. It's a little bit tricky to get right. So that's what we're going to look at today is improving that process. And one of the easiest ways to improve that process is with Corridor Mapper. This is a third-party software that it really brings everything into one dialog box. It makes it so much easier. With Corridor Mapper from CTC, we're bringing in all of these targets into one single interface, and we're able to target everything from selecting them to layers to styles. However you want to grab those objects, we're targeting everything in one dialog box, so it's much, much faster to bring all of this information in and take it back out. And on top of that, it's a mapped set of targets. So we're able to come back and reassociate that set of targets even faster without even having to go into the full dialog box. You can use XREF objects to target, and there's also mirroring subassemblies, which is a newer feature that we've just added. In fact, this interface that I'm showing here on the slides is the new and improved Corridor Mapper. This tool from the Sim project suite was taken and actually completely overhauled to give you so much more efficiency and variability, or sorry, flexibility in the dialog box. So that's what we're going to look at today is the new way of formatting and working with the Corridor Mapper. So as I flip over into Civil 3D, we've got this project right here with the subdivision. And for time's sake with this subdivision, we've gone in here and we've already graded out the road center lines. And we've already put in a couple of different conditional targets that we're going to use. We've got all of our baseline center lines here, so the center lines of road as well as the curb returns. We'll finish up these intersections. And we'll take a look at kind of the most efficient ways to deal with corridors as a whole as we start to build them out. We've got 3 assemblies that we're going to use for this. All of them have horizontal conditional sub-assemblies rather. And we've added kind of a step where we have to choose whether we even want a curb there, and that's going to be useful for the intersections. So we've kind of eliminated a set of assemblies that might be otherwise required by Civil 3D to complete an intersection design. And then we've just got a simple little curb return right here. Now, let's get this started. So the very first thing we have to do, creating a corridor, let's create a corridor. And this is very simple, just native. We're going to pick an initial baseline for it and an initial initial vertical baseline. And here I've got my 3 assemblies. Well, this is my primary road, so let's stick with that. I'll uncheck the set baselines and region parameters. That just pops me into my corridor properties right off the hop, which we're going to stay out of. Corridor Mapper is meant to completely replace the target mapping that we've got natively, and as such, it'll respect any native target mapping that you want to do, but it will kind of bark at you and say, hey, are you sure you want to do both of these? It is more efficient just to take it and run with Corridor Mapper. Now, right off the hop here, I've got an alignment. Now, let's do some tidying up. So there's lots of grip editing that we can do, obviously. We'll take this and we'll grab up to the side there so it's not into the roadway. We can probably do the same up at the top. Actually, it's looking pretty good. Now, this corridor, as I go and edit all of these things, we have lots of different commands up in the command line. And I would encourage you from an efficiency standpoint to use these instead of having to go into the corridor properties and edit back and forth in the corridor properties. Having to bump in and out of this and find which baseline and region you're looking for becomes fairly tedious, and you've got all of the same commands or most of the same commands right at your fingertips in the ribbon. If I want to edit the frequencies, I find it's easier just to click the edit frequencies here, and you get a visual of which region you're editing at each time. So you can select this region and it bumps you right into the frequencies dialog box where we can tighten up some of this maybe along curves. Make it every 5 meters for right now. And we can load that out. I find the tools in the ribbon are going to be a lot handier. Um, but this corridor, it's got sidewalks going through all. Let's fix this up. So I'm going to escape here and I'm going to go to my sim project suite. I'm going to grab my corridor mapper and I'll set up targets. Right off the hop, we're always following along what's going on in the command line. Always keep one eye on the command line because you get additional options and things like that that you wouldn't otherwise see. Opening up Corridor Mapper, this is what we're left with. Now, it might be overwhelming at first, but there's lots of stuff we can do, and it's very user-friendly to kind of get us started. I've gone ahead and I've named most of my sub-assemblies in here, or at least the important ones. Now, if I didn't, or if I had a lot of different sub-assemblies that had these targeting options, I can use the filter command. If I want to start out and say I want to target all of my driveways for starters, I can start typing driveway up there, and it's going to refine the list for me. Now I'm just looking at my 2 driveway sub-assemblies. And what these are, in fact, there's 4 driveway sub-assemblies, and they are my horizontal conditional assemblies that tell me whether it's there or not, and whether I need a drop curb or not. If 2 sub-assemblies are named the same, so on the left I'll have both the target found and the target not found, it's going to group those together. You can see the number of assemblies with the same name is 2. Now, where would I like to target this? In this drawing, I've got a number of little magenta lines down there, and they're just simple polylines, so I can map them by layer. So over here as well, I can filter through all of my layers, or maybe I want to start typing drive. And I can see that all of my driveway target layers are all sitting right here. So I've got my street 1 target driveway left. I'll check that off, and it grabs everything on that layer. So I've got 28 targets that just got assigned. Same thing here. I'll take my driveway right, and we can find street 1 driveway right. We'll check that off. Now, maybe I'm not looking for just driveways here. Back off the filtering options, and I get lots of other options in here as well. I've got my lanes left and right. I've got intersection left and right. Now, this one's kind of cool. Let's set the intersection right. And to do that, instead of driveway, notice all of my layers that I use for targeting start with corridor target, or CT. So I can quickly find intersection right. This is the first component, and I'll click OK, and we can see what we've done here. Right off the hop, as you click OK, it's going to confirm the number of targets we just set. It processes and it'll refine this. Now, let's split this, my viewports here, 2 horizontal viewports, so that down here I can look at my assembly, and I can see these ones here are my intersection assemblies, or sub-assemblies. This is to tell me whether I have an intersection or not. Target not found, then goes to the next target found, target not found. And I'm looking for whether it's a drop curb or not. But when the target is found, I'm able to apply just a small little piece, which leaves the sidewalk away and out of the way for me to create an intersection. And all I need is this simple polyline right here on the layer. I've done that for 3 different intersections here. And you can see that all of my driveways are also targeted. Now, the first big difference between, or another big difference between this and the native tools is if I have additional driveways, I missed a couple up here. Well, I can just go CO, copy this out, and drag these up here and add a couple more curb drops for driveways. Now, natively, I'd have to go 3 dialog boxes in, go delete that layer, and re-add it so it's going to reassociate. With Corridor Mapper, we've already mapped those targets. All we have to do is auto map. We have to come back and confirm that those targets are still reading and up to date. Instead of 40, now I've got 42. And I click OK, and it's going to map that out for me. It's going to add those additional curb drops. Now, this is looking pretty good. Let's look at adding some intersection stuff here. So if I grab this corridor, and we're actually just going to do this natively. I'll add a baseline. I can name the baseline. I can pick my baseline alignment. This might get really cluttered. You might have a lot of alignments in here. Let's go just pick it from the drawing. Click OK. And just confirm that you've got the right profile as well. I'll add another baseline here and keep going. And we'll quickly add all 6 of these. Add another baseline, pick from drawing, and this can get very efficient. I'm adding multiple baselines in here, one after another, and then I can apply regions to them after the fact. Oh, cancel. I went 1 too quickly there. Here, click this. Ooh. We've got street 1 and 2 north out. The outside of the crescent is what I was going for there. It's very important as we're going along to name all of these. So that we've got all of these showing up correctly. 2 more here. 1 and 3 south, 1 and 3 south. Add baseline. We'll pick from the drawing here. And 1 and 3 north. So now that we've got all of these baselines established, let's scroll back down to the bottom here. What's the next thing that needs to happen? Well, if you've done intersections before, we need a region along here. We need to then apply the curb return sub-assemblies, or assembly rather, along that, and then we need to start targeting to make sure that it matches in and ties in really nicely. So the next thing that I'll have to do is add a region. Where do I want to add the region? Well, I have to select this baseline, and I can go from the start of this curb return to the end of this curb return. And a little trick here, as you're creating curb return alignments, try and keep them all turning in the same direction. It saves the trouble of having to create a left and a right curb return assembly. We'll click OK. And when you do that, it's going to open up the native target mapping. We're going to click cancel. We don't need that. We're working with Corridor Mapper. The next, we'll have to go back and pick a baseline. Oops, baseline. We'll select the next baseline. And we're going to start from here and go to the other end of that curb return right there. Same thing, curb return looks good, and we'll cancel out of that. one more baseline, or a couple more baselines here. Starting from the start. Oh, you have to jump back in. Sometimes it does that. The start there to the end over here, and pick that region. Again, canceling out of this. I'm trying to go through this relatively quickly, but at the same time, trying to do it all in real time so that we can see how some of this goes. Add a region, select that baseline initially, and there we go. Now I won't do the top ones for time's sake here, but we've got these started. Now, let's go back down to the very first one. What's the first issue we see here? It looks like it does not look very good. And that's because of the frequency. So the very first thing we can do is edit that frequency, selecting from the ribbon, and it very quickly pops us in here. We can say along a curb, let's go every meter. And then we'll click OK. Well, that looks a lot nicer. But now we still need some targeting. We still need to figure this out. So what's the next thing we do? All of our targeting happens in Corridor Mapper. I'll pop open Corridor Mapper, select the corridor, and we're able to come in here. Oh. Corridor Mapper, set up targets, because we haven't mapped these targets yet. And we'll jump in here. Now, there's a heck of a lot more sub-assemblies that can target now. We can, with Corridor Mapper, refine our search. So we've got Street 1 and 2, south, out. That would be the outside of the bottom one for the crescent. This leaves me with my lane and my right-of-way. Now, I've got the right-of-way, which will help tie to the curb return, or the daylight triangle, right here. So let's set that just with a simple row. If I go to the lane, though, I can do this by style. I know that I've got an offset style in there, and I know that I've got the center line of Street 2 is a proposed style. So I can set that up very quickly. Again, if I didn't know what those were, and I've got a giant list, I can filter through all of this as well. Now, let's see what that created. I'll click OK. And we're just dealing with width and offset targets right now. But now we've added additional targets. We'll look at it. And that looks a heck of a lot better. Now, notice, this is another thing that I like to do with my intersections. If I go take a look at my assembly here, and in fact, we're going to look at the curb return assembly. This curb return assembly has a link width and offset, but instead of having that link showing, in my properties, you have the option to omit that link. What that allows you to do is it won't build the surface in there, it won't force the surface to just be that slope. I like to do this so that I can build out my sidewalks manually in here. I find there's a lot of funky stuff that happens at intersections when it comes to sidewalks with tactile plates and making sure that the drop curves happen in the right directions. Instead of trying to replicate that with a corridor, it's going to be a lot easier if we just do that with feature lines. So instead of getting really complicated, I can come in here, just omit that link, and it goes a lot faster. Hit escape. Now, once I've got one of these nicely, let's take a look at the next tool that's going to help you out a lot when it comes to editing your corridors. We've got all of the targeting nicely done here with Corridor Mapper. Well, we just want to replicate that over here. There's a handy tool called Match Corridor Region Parameters. If I select that, I have to pick the source region, which would be this one right here. And then I can click the destination regions that I want to copy those parameters to. Click Enter, and it remembers the same targeting. It remembers the same frequencies and it puts it all in there for you. Let's try that one more time. Match parameters, we'll select, and we'll go up here and we'll click 1 and 2. That is a heck of a lot easier than having to go in 3 dialog boxes deep and update all of those. We can continue to build this out. We can add another baseline here and continue to add targets. And as some of those targets are replicated, or as some of those targets we realize they need to change, for example, Corridor Mapper makes it really easy for us to go in, set up those targets, and then it's going to remember all of those targets for us. So we can just auto map those targets, select the corridor that needs to be updated, and run those targets. It won't add targets there, but it's going to change the targets, and then I can go and set this back up again. Corridor Mapper offers really simple one dialog box to get in here and adjust all of these setups. Now, I've got a number of different lanes that I may need to replicate. Here's the last thing that I'll set up for us. We've got a lane width and offset target right here. And what we can do really quickly is I can map this one. I know exactly what this needs to be. It needs to be my offset style. Now, that's great, but instead of having to pick all of these, or maybe I just want to shift click right here and I could set all of this. Instead of doing that, what I could do instead is we have the option, instead of referencing a specific object, we have the option to mirror another subassembly. Now, when I do that, my criteria changes over here. I'm now looking for another subassembly to mirror the targeting options for. If I come across, I can find underscore lane. And now any targeting that happens to that first lane right is also going to happen to this lane right over here for the separate region. That type of scenario makes it a lot handier to go in and only have to adjust the targeting for one individual subassembly and then know that the other subassemblies are going to then copy that one. They don't have to be the same name, and this way you can divide things up with different names but still have them targeting the same scenarios. Click OK. It's going to build this out. We've added 4 more, and these lanes will tighten up to the offset alignments. There. Oh, looks like we've grabbed this guy right here. Now, I could mess around with this, or I know that I've got parameters that I like. So I could come back here, select this region, and pick the destination. And we can fix this one right back up. Corridor Mapper, along with the ribbon tools for editing your corridors, is going to save you a lot of time when you're editing all of your corridors. And we can build this all out and have it all get set up. But I think at this point you get the idea of what I'm trying to get after. Corridor Mapper offers a great situation to edit all of your corridor targeting. And in these couple minutes, we've targeted 50-some different targets, and I didn't even get into developing the whole corridor. We can apply hundreds of targets across the whole thing, and as we build out additional curb drops and things like that, it's going to replicate all of those through the automap targets, because it remembers that, hey, we're still looking for this layer. Let's reassociate that layer. Corridor Mapper looks a little bit daunting, but as you get into it, you can just see that there's a lot of granular control for the layers, styles, and objects, being able to filter things out to get exactly the layers that you're looking for, the sub-assemblies that you're looking for, and the baselines and regions that you're looking for. This is really handy, and I hope you have a chance to try it out. on your next road reconstruction project or road project with corridors. With that, I'd like to turn this back to Ramil and wrap up and see if we have any questions.
Great. Thank you, Colin, for that. Now we have the time for your questions, so please go ahead and type those in the Q&A icon below. As we're waiting for those questions to come in, just come and witness our next session on pipe network design and Excel integration on Thursday, September 9th at 1:30. This session will show you how much time is saved by creating or editing custom design en masse. This tool, much like all our other tools, will automate those repetitive tasks faced when using Civil 3D natively. Now, if you're interested in seeing more of SolidCAD CTC workflow efficient tools, let us know. We can set up a dedicated orientation session with your entire CAD team and find solutions that pertain to your specific needs and specific projects. Now, there was a question that came in about improving the quality of the video. We'll address that with that client. We'll reach out to them. For everyone else, please go ahead and type in those questions. We're here to help. Just contact myself or Colin or connect with your accounts reps. Let us know how we can help. So I don't see any questions coming in. So with that, I would like to thank you once again for joining, and we'll see you soon. Enjoy the rest of your day.